Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. I'm back tonight with another vlog update, and I know it's been a couple of weeks since I posted a clip, but I promise you that I haven't been lazy on the channel. I've just been traveling a lot, and I caught a bug just before Easter that just knocked the stuffing out of me. I've been on my back sort of fighting this bug where I had infection in the lungs and the head and sinuses, and it was just a mess. I've been sick as a dog, and it's been frustrating because there's been a couple of really cool things happen over the last couple of weeks that I wanted to get in front of a camera and talk to you guys about, but I've been so sick that I haven't been able to record, and you probably can still hear some congestion in my head as I'm talking tonight, but I couldn't wait any longer. I felt like I'm well enough to get downstairs and put a clip together just to update you on a couple of cool things. So in this vlog tonight, I'm going to cover 4 specific topics. The first one I'm going to talk about is the DJI announcement of March 28th. I know I made a really big deal about thinking it was going to be this new Master Wheels product from DJI, so you guys can all poke fun at me because I was totally wrong on that. In my defense, they did release it after that, but it didn't make the March 28th date. So I was wrong on that one, but I'll talk about what they did release. The second thing I want to talk about is a concept called a Wi-Fi mesh network. Now, this has nothing to do with flying a quad, but I've explained before that I want to expand the channel to talk about other high-tech gear and some late-breaking innovations that are happening in technology. This is something you might be interested in if you have a Wi-Fi network in your home and you've got dead spots. I'll explain why these products are coming out, what they do, and how they benefit you. I'm only going to give you sort of a taste of what this product's about. I will do future clips that review different brands of them. This is the Linksys product here, the VLOP product, but there's an Eero product. Google's got one. There's a bunch of companies that make them. So if you're thinking of investing in something like this, keep track of the channel because I'll have other clips talking about the differences between them so you can understand exactly what you're spending your money on. The third thing I want to talk about was a really important announcement you may have missed in the last couple of weeks for a new organization called the Alliance for Drone Innovation. Now, it's kind of an interesting topic because it's got a lot of manufacturers and retailers involved in it, but the purpose of that organization, I think, is a wonderful thing for our hobby, and I'll get into why I think that's true in a few minutes. But suffice it to say that that announcement came out last week. DJI's part of it, GoPro's in there, 3DR's in there. There's a bunch of big companies that are sort of banding together to sort of help our industry. I'll get into details around that. Then the last thing I'll do is the Gadget Corner, which is one of my favorite parts of these clips. And I've got a brand new gadget here that I've been using for a couple of months, and this may be the coolest gadget I've come across in quite some time. It's a little device that's going to make transferring video footage and pictures from your drones to your computer to your phone back and forth. It's got a lot of really cool things going on, and I'll get into the details around that in a few minutes. So let me start off with the DJI announcement. So March 28th, big event, DJI, kind of a secret thing like they do every time. A lot of people out there were speculating it was going to be the Phantom 5 or the Phantom 4 second generation or the new Mavic Pro 2 or Spark 3. I don't know. There were a lot of wild predictions out there. I didn't think it was going to be a consumer drone because it came out of their enterprise division. Turns out it wasn't a consumer drone. I thought it was going to be one of two things. So if you've watched that clip that I put out, I thought for sure it was going to be something like the Master Wheels product from DJI, which they did eventually release. And in case you're not sure what that product is, it's essentially a production tool that's used for large video productions where you've got this physical box that's got 3 wheels on it that you spin. And when you spin those wheels remotely control actuators in a large gimbal assembly for a big camera to move it around. So they can have it high in a crane. You can spin the wheels and actually pan, tilt, and rotate that camera. So for production, it's really kind of an innovative thing. And I know a lot of people nowadays go to digital kind of controls with joysticks, but a lot of the old school people and the professionals really like to have that tactile feedback of a wheel. So I think that product's going to do really, really well for DJI in that production environment. The second thing I thought it would be a commercial drone, which was, again, totally wrong. I felt like they were moving more into the commercial space. That seems to be a market that's untapped. I know DJI is doing big things right now, as well as all the other companies out there for agriculture and surveying and power line inspections and all that kind of stuff. And DJI last year came out with their Matrices series, the 600 and the 200, for new products that are out there. And I felt like they were going to come out with some combination drone in that space, and I was totally wrong. So I admit today, you guys can poke all the fun you want at me. I predicted those two. I thought that for sure those Master Wheels were going to be the thing, and it turned out to be neither of them. The good news is what they did release was a brand new camera. It's a dual imaging camera called the ZenMuse XT2. Now the XT2 has a 4K sensor in it, so it's got a fantastic camera, but right alongside that camera, it's got a FLIR sensor in it. So when you look at that picture, and a couple people guessed it right, you've got 2 circles, the larger circles for the FLIR, the smaller circles for the 4K camera. So you may be thinking, well, big deal, what do I care about that? Well, for starters, it not only gives you the 4K resolution you get from a fantastic camera up in the sky, but having that secondary FLIR camera on there means, because of the way the software works, I can overlay a heat image on top of the video image. So if you think about that, now as a flyer that flies as a hobbyist, it's not going to really help me much, but eventually it might be a cool camera for me to have, because if I'm flying over a particular area of the forest, maybe I'm looking for wildlife or deer or something out there, or maybe a dog's lost, I turn this thing on, it's going to find a heat signature and overlay that heat signature on the picture so I can zero in on exactly warmer objects or colder objects in that particular area, even through the underbrush, which is really amazing. But what I like about it so much is that for commercial applications, this is absolutely going to save lives. There's no doubt about it. So the fact that DJI and FLIR got together, put together this brilliant camera at a pretty decent price point. And I know it's insanely expensive to us as consumers, but in a commercial space, it's not that expensive because it's really high-tech stuff. But for them to put that together in a package that a fire department can use, or police can use, or rescue can use, where people are out in the woods, and instead of sending 100 people into this dangerous wooded area, you know, in the winter, they can put a drone up and fly over that forest and find heat signatures. This thing is so smart that if you watch the clip on their channel, you can actually set a temperature range to say, I want to set it around the body temperature range, so maybe from 70 degrees to 90 degrees, then fire this thing off over the water. You know, maybe a kayak flipped over and it's looking for a heat signature of something warm on the surface, which is the guy that may be drowning out there. So instead of putting a boat in the water and getting out there, getting a helicopter up, very quickly a lifeguard or somebody in the rescue business can put this thing up in the air, shoot it out over the water, and very quickly zero in on that person. The other thing that's really nice about it is that in addition to this, they've released the SDK, the software development kit, for their commercial platform, which means this camera only fits their commercial model. So I think it's the 200 and the 600 that it fits today, all those different versions. But they've also modified the platform where it can drop things. So it could drop a life buoy, or it could drop something else, a flotation device maybe for that person. What really impressed me about it, though, beyond just saving people in the water, was what it can do for fire and rescue. So if there's a building that's burning, they can put the drone up over top of the building and immediately identify where the fires are still going inside that building. So they're coming in right where they need to be to put that fire out. The other cool thing is that they showed an image of a window with smoke pouring out the window and a fireman going up the ladder. Now that poor fireman is thinking, not poor, but that brave fireman is thinking, should I go through that window? Is there really somebody inside that I can help? Or am I risking my life for nothing, really? By having that FLIR image overlaid with that, it can see through the smoke. So they showed you what it looked like with the smoke pouring out through a 4K camera, but then overlaying that thermal image on top of it, you could see that there was somebody inside that window sitting on a bed. So for me, these are life-changing kind of technologies. And I know I get excited about this kind of gear because I'm a nerd, but when you look at that beyond just being a cool technology, where it's actually impacting lives and saving lives and keeping our rescue and volunteer people safe, that's a home run for me. So good on you, DJI, for that. I hope you sell a ton of those things, because the more you get out there into people's hands, the more people are going to be saved because of it. So wonderful, wonderful technology. So again, if you're a consumer guy like me, you're probably still thinking, big deal, Rick, what does that mean to me? Well, what it means is that once this technology hits the market and they start selling it in volume. It lowers the price. So what that means is that technology will eventually trickle down to the consumer space. Maybe it'll start in the Inspire first, then it'll work its way down to the Phantom series. But overall, I think in time, the landscape of the technology for imaging that's coming out, both video imaging, where we're getting 4K or 8K cameras at higher resolutions, higher bit rates, as well as thermal imaging cameras, will be combined into a product that you'll see probably on the Phantom products before very long. So I think it's a wonderfully positive thing. If nothing more than just helping out those rescue squads, that's enough for me right there. But the fact that I think it's going to show up in the consumer stuff is a really big deal. So good on you guys for developing that technology. I hope other people adopt it. Let me talk about the Wi-Fi mesh networks. Now, if you're not familiar with a Wi-Fi mesh network, it's a pretty simple device. Normally what you're going to do in your home is you're going to buy a Wi-Fi router. You're going to connect this thing up, you're going to connect it up to your cable or whatever you're getting your Wi-Fi over, and you're going to turn it on. And Wi-Fi is not real good about penetrating walls or going around corners or getting up to a second floor. So you got to be really careful where you put this thing. You're going to try and locate it somewhere in the center of your house, around where you're going to be using your Wi-Fi devices most often. The problem is there are going to be dead spots in your house. And then you've got to buy a second one, and you've got to set up two Wi-Fi networks. And maybe they work together, maybe they don't. If you're on this one and you walk into the other room, it disconnects and reconnects. So if you're streaming a movie or something on your phone, or you're talking to somebody over VoIP, you'll lose that connection. What a Wi-Fi mesh network does is these guys are aware of each other, and they're all on the same network. So you can start with one, plug it in, and use it in your house. Over time, if you decide, you know what, I got a dead spot upstairs in that corner of the house, you can buy a second one. The minute you plug the second one in, these guys know about each other, and they handshake, and they become a network. They become a mesh network between the two of them. So if you're connected to this guy and it's strong enough, you wander away from him and get close to this guy, it'll transparently move you to this guy to keep your signal strength strong. Maybe you've got a really big house and you add a third one. you can add a lot of these in your home little by little. So you don't have to go out and buy them all at once. You can buy one to start, and you can add a second and a third later on. But the concept is they act together, and I'm going to sound super nerdy here, but if you're a Star Trek fan, it's a bit of a Borg arrangement where one of them wakes up, the second one wakes up. If you don't know what Borg is, go out there and Google it. But the second one wakes up, and they share a consciousness for Wi-Fi. Third one wakes up, they all understand what they're doing, so they're all talking to each other. So this is a really new concept for consumer electronics. It's been out in commercial electronics for a long time. A lot of the office buildings have it, but a lot of these companies like Linksys, there's another company, Eero, Google's got one out. I'm sure Apple's got one out, or they got one coming, but there's probably 6 companies right now that are kind of chasing this market space. And what I'm finding is consumers, because we're doing more streaming in our homes for videos and pictures and Netflix and all that other stuff, and we're using VoIP now as opposed to cellular data for our phone calls, the Wi-Fi network in the home is becoming super critical for us, especially as we add more and more devices like home security devices and cameras and automation stuff. So I think these Wi-Fi mesh networks are going to become a really big thing. I only installed one in my house about 6 months ago, and I'm telling you, it's changed the way we use the Wi-Fi. We used to all hunker in the corner of the kitchen where the Wi-Fi was really strong, and that's where we would sort of gather to use our devices. And I put this thing in, and now we can wander all over the house, even out into the backyard, all the way to the back corner of my property, and I still get great Wi-Fi. So that's basically what a Wi-Fi mesh network does for you. And again, I'll have other clips that'll talk about the advantages of what Linksys does versus the Eero versus the Google. They're all a little bit different about how they work. There's different price points. Some are faster than others. Some work real well when you're broadcasting, for you to receive data, and don't do so well when you're trying to upload data. So there's a lot of little nuances between them that I'll get into. So stay tuned for those clips, and I'll talk about that. Okay, the third thing I want to talk about is this brand new alliance that came out. So it's a brand new organization called the, I lost it again, Alliance for Drone Innovation. I should have that on the tip of my tongue. But basically what this organization is designed to do is to support us as flyers. Because up until now, I've made a couple of clips about this, and I'm working on a couple more. I'm frustrated as a flyer because all I want to do is fly my quad. And the FAA tells me where I can fly it, how high, how far, how fast, and where I shouldn't fly it. And I play by those rules. And I know most of you guys, probably all you guys do too. You're all playing by the rules because we're not out there to create havoc, and we're having fun with our quads. The problem is that a lot of local municipalities or townships or parks or beaches have decided we don't really think that it's safe. And okay, the FAA says we can't do stuff, but we're going to limit where these people fly. We're going to say, you can't fly on our beach. You can't fly on our park. We've got laws where if you fly over somebody's property, you're violating their privacy. And the challenge is that if you have the states decide that, or worse, the towns, or worse, the parks, then it's confusing. I don't know where I'm going to fly. I don't know who's in charge. And I'm flying by the FAA rules, but I get a ticket because I'm flying on a beach because some local municipality decided it's too dangerous to fly on the beach when there's 3 seagulls out there. So what this organization's designed to do is really 5 things specifically. And I'll talk about each one of them in order to give you a feel for where it's going to go. But what they are is a lobbying organization, which means they're going to spend time in front of the people that make the laws, talking with the FAA, trying to broker the FAA's influence and control over the different state regulations out there, just to add a little bit of sanity to this particular landscape, which I think at this point is a bit of a Wild West, because if you're flying, I fly in New Jersey, if I fly in New Jersey, I know what the laws are. The minute I cross the border into Pennsylvania, New York City, Connecticut, Florida, it's a different game. So I want one organization that sort of helps me understand that landscape across the country, and these guys are trying to do that. So the first thing they're involved with is promoting flyer education. So they want people to get smarter about flying. I think that's a good thing for all of us, because there's so many drones being sold nowadays that a lot of new people are entering the hobby. They don't know what the laws are. They're flying above 400 feet. They're flying on a visual line of sight. Those are the guys that are going to cause problems. And you know what happens the first time somebody runs into something or crashes a drone in a public square? Everybody gets punished for that, and all of a sudden draconian laws start getting inflicted. So educating consumers, I think, is a wonderful thing. Putting together programs and videos and stuff that explains how you should fly a drone safely is a good thing, and I believe most consumers want to fly safely. The second thing they're going to do, this is where it's going to help us, is they're going to shape drone regulation. So they're going to get involved in those committees at the state and federal level, I believe, that make the laws. So in New Jersey, if they're going to have a law come up where they're going to actually limit the drones or determine where drones can be flown, these guys are going to be involved in those committees and make suggestions based on facts and science that show that drones aren't unsafe, and the FAA has already thought this stuff through. Maybe here's some regulations you want to consider. So I think that's a wonderful thing for us. The third thing they're going to do, and this is where it gets a little touchy, is they're going to dive into the concept of privacy. Now, I've said this before, drones are not out there to film people in their backyard. I'm not hovering over somebody's yard trying to catch a shot of somebody in a bikini getting into a pool. That's not what I'm about. I put a drone up to capture beautiful landscapes and seascapes and over forests, and I just love the freedom it gives me to get it up in the air and fly it around the country. I'm not looking to zero in on somebody's backyard, but if you're hovering over somebody's backyard for too long, that bothers me, right? Why are you hovering over the backyard? Unless you're doing aerial photography for realtors or something like that, I get that. But hovering over somebody's backyard is bad. So the concept of have you violated their privacy or not is kind of an open question, right? And you could get sued for that. So you got to be really careful. What these guys are going to do is put together, I think, a framework of rules or suggestions of what kind of respectful attitudes we should have towards privacy, just so there's a basic understanding, because of all the laws that are out there, that's probably the most squishy one right now, state to state and even township to township, about what what constitutes a violation of your privacy. Honestly, if you can see it and it's in plain view, I don't think you're violating anybody's privacy. Although hovering over somebody's backyard when they're out back and their kids are out back is kind of creepy, right? So why would you be doing that? If you're out there flying your quad to catch that perfect sunset or a beautiful lake, just go fly near the lake. Don't fly over somebody's backyard. I mean, you can cruise over top of it, keep it over 100 feet, just keep moving. Don't stop. But anyway, they're going to work on the privacy side of things. So I think that's a positive thing, because if we don't talk about it, legislators are going to talk about it. They're going to make up their minds on what should happen, and we'll have no influence over it. So again, I think this organization, Alliance for Drone Innovation, can really help us add some sanity to that space. They're also big in encouraging innovation, because right now, of all the tech that's out there, there's nothing advancing more quickly, I should say, than drone technology, for me anyway. It seems like the distances are getting further, the cameras are getting better, the control mechanisms, the autonomy built into them, the sensing systems to avoid crash and things like that and return to home are just advancing like in years pace every 6 months, it seems like. So they're doubling and tripling. It's almost like a Moore's law that violates Moore's law. It's like a double Moore's law, which is, getting smarter every 6 months. So it's a very incredible thing. So they're there to encourage innovation, because the challenge is going to be, and I've said this to all the companies that will listen to me, DJI Announcement, I've talked to everybody out there about this. The minute these laws get so restrictive that I can't fly, you guys are out of business. You can't sell a drone. No one's going to spend $1,500 on a drone to fly it in their backyard. So if I can't take it to the park, I can't take it to the beach, I can't fly it when I want to fly it, I'm out of the hobby. And most people are going to say the same thing. So it's important, if you want to keep innovating, that you have an organization that helps you protect our ability to fly responsibly. That's it. And these guys are going to do that. So by encouraging innovation and building things in like, tracking systems for the drones. So if somebody's flying a rogue drone in an area you shouldn't be, you know who it is, making sure they're safe, so there's collision protection built in, that there's some geofencing. And I know this is kind of a controversial thing. A lot of people hate DJI because they've got these geofences set up. Those geofences are just keeping you from flying into areas that are restricted anyway. So if you're going to fly in a restricted area, would you rather have a federal guy showing up at your house banging on your door, or have DJI built in a geofence that stops it before you actually break the federal law? So I think the innovation around making them safer, making them easier to fly, and certainly helping us, understand where we can and can't fly is a good thing. So that's the fourth thing they're going to do. And then the last one, and this is probably the most important of all five, is they're going to help preserve the FAA's authority. Now that's confounded me since this whole thing started, because if you're the Federal Aviation Administration, and you essentially have the right to control anything that flies, so their mandate says from the grounds to the heavens is their purview, which means anything that flies, it's an inch off the ground, it's 8,000 feet in the ground, they control what happens with that craft. How does a state step in at that point and say, okay, you're the federal government, we get that, but we've decided that this beach is dangerous. Rick's going to fly his drone on the beach. He might hit a seagull. We're not letting him fly on the beach. Why does the FAA not come to the state and go, hold on a second, this is our gig. You can't be saying that stuff. We're the guys who get to set those laws. So there's a bit of a timidity between the two. Like, I would expect the FAA to be very aggressive about that, defending their turf, because if they don't defend it and the state gets to implement a law, guess what? The next state puts a law and this state puts a law in, all of a sudden they're ineffective. They've surrendered their sovereignty over the airspace. So with this organization, I think they're going to act as sort of a broker between the FAA and the states to sort of have some common sense conversations about what is reasonable regulations and how the FAA rules could be applied. And I'm sure they've got a lot of really wild ideas that are going to help this industry move forward. I didn't mean wild in the sense of crazy. I meant innovative ideas that could actually broker a decent conversation between the federal government and a lot of these state and local authorities. party. So my fingers are crossed that these guys are going to be a very, very positive force. And again, there's a ton of companies. I'll put a graphic up and show you some of the key players that are in there from the very beginning. But unlike a lot of the organizations that are out there that represent the commercial space, this is really geared towards innovation in the consumer space. This is where I live, right? That's what I want to have fixed. So good on you guys. I'm looking forward to big things from you. Expect me to be shooting you a ton of emails, asking questions, and writing you for some answers on some of the legislations out there. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is this whiz-bang device over here to my right. Now, to look at this thing, it's kind of tiny, and essentially what it is a 5-in-1 card reader. So you're thinking, well, that's not that cool. Why is that so cool? Well, let me tell you what it does. For starters, full-size USB connection on the end. You can put a micro SD card in it or full-size SD card in it. Plug it into your computer, transfer your videos over to your computer. You could do that for the last 20 years, right? Ever since these cards came out. You can also plug it into your iPhone. Well, that's interesting. What are you going to do with your iPhone? Well, if you pop a card out of your drone, which I do all the time, pop it in here, pop it in my iPhone, I can watch the videos I just shot on my bird. So I can look at the pictures and the videos right on my iPhone. I don't have to transfer them to the iPhone. They stay on the SD card, and I can view on my iPhone. I can also pop a little micro USB connection out this end and plug it into my Android devices. So I can connect up to a full-size PC or a Mac, an Android product, tablet or phone, or an Apple product, tablet or phone. And anything I put in here, whatever SD card's in there, I can immediately view that on that device. So where this works for me really well is a lot of times I'll go out and I'll shoot for an afternoon. And maybe the focus is off, or maybe the lighting's not right. I used the wrong filter. I've got the wrong ND filter on it. Or I'm doing an interview with a camera, digital camera, and I want to make sure the audio's going. So I spent some time at CES and we did a ton of in-the-booth interviews. I had choppy audio in there, and I didn't know that till we got back to the studio. All that video footage is almost useless. So by having the ability to pop a card out of my drone, pop it in here, and review that footage is just amazing. So it doesn't transfer off the card unless you want to, it just allows you to view it. So for me, I carry a bunch of these with me. They're in every bag I've got. It's a $20 device. I mean, it's a very inexpensive device to give you that kind of functionality. So if you're out in the field and you're shooting video for the day and you're wondering, gee, did I get that right video? Did it work out well? Was the focus on? Did I actually capture the footage I thought? You pop your card in here, pop it up against your phone, and you can immediately view that footage. Now, if you're connecting to a PC, full-size USB, you don't need any drivers or anything. It just plugs in and works. If you're going to plug it into the iPhone or an Android, there's a small, lightweight application you download. It's a free application that allows you to transfer the files to the phone, view the files, move the files around, rename the files, all the stuff you want to do. So, pretty cool device. One other thing it does, and this is something that I think is pretty amazing too, is that a lot of times when I travel, I have a lot of time to kill. I'm at an airport, I'm on a plane, they're not taking off right away. I can actually drop an SD card in here, or a micro SD card in here, transfer movies or videos to it, and then pop it out of my pocket, connect it up to my iPhone, and actually watch that movie on my iPhone. I don't have to transfer that gigantic file to my iPhone and eat up all the space on my iPhone. I can use it on this, or if I have a tablet with me, I can plug it in to whatever flavor tablet I've got and watch that video. So for me, it's sort of this Swiss Army knife of devices where I can use it to transfer files, I can view files, I can use it as a portable storage device, so it does everything I need. And again, for 20 bucks, you can't beat it. So I've got a link below. We actually picked up a bunch of these because I did try, I must have tried 5 or 6 of them, and 3 of them didn't work at all. It just gave me nothing but errors. This one works flawlessly. So we've decided to carry this on the store. I've got a link below if you want to check it out. You can. I'm sure you can find it everywhere out there. It's not that big a secret, but I love this product. So if you have questions about that, let me know. And again, I'm sorry that I'm going through this really fast. You can tell that I'm still on prednisone antibiotics here to get this flu cleaned up. So I'm a little bit hyper, but I wanted to get this clip together because I really miss talking to you guys, and I love putting these kind of clips together. So hopefully you find the information I put together tonight helpful. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about, I'm in bed. I'll be typing out my computer, so I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. But in the meantime, I've got a lot more stuff coming. So give me a couple of days, let me catch up a little bit, and we'll start posting a lot of really cool stuff because there's so much stuff going on right now, and it's springtime. So I'm hoping you guys are out there flying. It's killing me with this beautiful weather, not getting my quad up more often, but that's coming really soon. A couple more days and I'll be back out flying. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks an awful lot for watching. You guys know I love doing these clips, and I'm hoping you guys are enjoying them. So until next time, happy flying.